Hey Milo, it's Dad. I wanted to share something that I've been thinking about a lot. This is $4,000 in cash, a whole bunch of 20s. It's probably not going to be worth as much as it is now whenever you're old enough to watch this video. But the reason it relates to the idea is because this is just a tool. I can use it in a lot of different ways. I can decide how to use this money, in good ways or bad ways. I can buy a whole bunch of heroin with this, make a really bad decision. I could go down the street and buy a hotel room and cheat on your mom. Those are some bad ways to use this money. This is a lot of money. I could also feed a lot of people. I could clothe a lot of people. I could probably employ someone for a short period of time for this much money. But I can use this money for bad ways and good ways. Until then, it's just a thing. It's just a tool. I was thinking about this. There's a lot of other tools. This is also a tool. Unfortunately, recently we've been seeing a lot of that tool being used for bad reasons. School shootings, suicides. I know some people who probably want to gather up a bunch of illegal immigrants, line them up and shoot them in the head, send a message, make an example of them. To me, that would be a bad use of this tool. This tool could also be used to defend this home that we live in. Maybe some people bust in through the front door, tape us all up, and do unimaginable things to us. If this tool was used to stop that, that would make this a good thing, right? How we use the tools determine if they're good or bad. These are also tools. I've practically built a house with these hands. You can also choke someone, kill them with your hands. And I was thinking about this idea, and I realized this is the exact same thing. It's just a tool. There's a lot of good in this. There's also, as I've recently found, a lot of bad in this. We all know the good stuff. It's been very helpful to me. When I was 12, I was molested. There's some stuff in here about forgiving someone 77 times and not judging others and loving your neighbor. That stuff, that part of this tool has been very helpful to me. There's a lot of other stuff, part of this tool, that I really don't agree with, that I really do not like, that I wish wasn't in here. I'm going to give you some examples of that to prove my point. The first one is Proverbs 13:24. Whoever spares the rod hates their children. To me, this sounds an awful lot like, if you do not beat your children with a rod, you hate them. I wish the language was a little different. At least say spanking or something. No, it says rod. That's not the only verse, though. There's another one, Proverbs 23:13-14. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish them with a rod, if you beat them with a rod, they will not die. Punish them with a rod and save them from hell. These two verses are really encouraging. As a tool, child abuse. Now, I don't spank you. I never have. I never will. For own personal reasons, moral, philosophical reasons, I don't think spanking teaches well. But this does. This says that spanking or beating someone, beating you, Milo, with a rod will save you from hell. I'm not a big fan of that one. I've really struggled with that. That's not the only one, though. This can also be used as a tool to justify murder. A perfect example is Exodus 20. If we go to Exodus 20:13, what we actually have are the Ten Commandments. Exodus 20:13 is right here. It is, you shall not murder. I'm a big fan of that one. The problem that I think, now a reason why I think this is a tool is because a few chapters later, after God says you should not murder, 12 chapters to be exact, in Exodus 32, verse 27, it says, thus saith the Lord. The context of this is that there were some people worshiping a golden calf. They were doing some stuff that Moses didn't like, or God didn't like. Let every man kill his brother, let every man kill his friend, and every man kill their neighbor. That sounds an awful lot different than the words of Jesus, who is supposed to be the same God, right? Not a big fan of killing your neighbors, specifically for having different beliefs. This can be used for a tool to kill people who think differently than you, if you want it to be. Unfortunately, murder is not the only thing. There's some verses in here about slavery. In fact, if America didn't have the 13th Amendment, there's nothing in here that says you cannot pay money to own another person and their rights for life. Leviticus 25:44 through 46. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. That's pretty clear. You can bequeath them, you can give them to your children as inherited property and make them slaves for life. Apparently, God says that we can own slaves for life. Or rather, he did at some point. I very much disagree with that. I think there was a man in power who sought more political power and put that in there. I guess that's for you to decide, though. It doesn't stop at murder and slavery, though. We can also go into sexism, because 1 Corinthians says, women should remain silent in churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. So this is saying women cannot talk in church. And I know a lot of women who speak in church, and their justification for that is that Paul, the author of this text in the Bible, said it was just talking to a very specific group of women who are causing outbursts in a specific church, and that doesn't apply to me. But those women also haven't read the rest of what Paul says. In 1 Timothy, he says, a woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. For Adam was formed first, and this is the reasoning that Paul gives. Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived, and then became a sinner. So Paul's reasoning why women cannot teach or speak in church is because men are better than women. And the last time a woman tried to teach a man something, what she taught him was to sin. It's pretty sexist. It's just a tool. How you use it determines if it's good or bad. Now, I could repeat that verse to your mom over and over again, that she should just listen to me, submission. She's not allowed to speak in church. But that would be me metaphorically buying heroin or cheating on her in a hotel. The same for the slavery verses, or the murder verses, or the homosexual verses. I do disagree a lot of what's in here. But there's a lot of good things too. Just like this can be used for good or bad. It's not necessarily a good or bad thing until you use it. Although, very commonly, this is mostly used for bad. I see this being used to hurt people a lot as well. And Milo, the point I'm getting at is I really hope you identify the tools that you have in your life as you grow up, and you use them for good, to better yourself and others, to help them and not to hurt them. Whether those tools that you use be cash, your hands, a gun, or a Bible. Use them for good. Love you, Milo.